In the age of modern AAA gaming, in the new landscape of what is the supposedly quadruple A gaming, at times it's best to think about the atrocities that have been committed by the amount of filth that has plagued a hobby and interest that once was full of passion by a group of passionate dev teams of about max of 20 people or so, pumping out banger after banger after banger every year or so, or maybe every other year. And man, thinking back on those type of days, it was a good time to be alive around that type of era of game development. But sometimes to get back into the roots of where things come from, sometimes one must look to the past and grab some sort of inspiration or two, but not like The Last of Us 2, because seriously, who in their right mind thought that game needed a remake of all things? Oh Sony, you sweet baby. Oh how you let these Americans change you oh so much. Let's continue on, because I feel like they may be on the path back to their stellar ways of cultured Japanese, ashy-knee, kawaii ways. Or in certain cases, maybe not. But enough of this dopamine appetizer, and back to the main topic of the video. Super Mario 64 Land is a ROM hack made by Kaze, the man, the myth, the legend himself. It's a game that takes the concept that was executed to make two great games in the same Italian Yahoo series that started first on the 3DS and then on to the Wii U. Remember that console, kids? Pepperidge Farm remembers. Anyways, while I have yet to complete the 3D side of that classic but in 3D design of a classical Super Mario Bros. Adventure, I can at least say that I have fully completed the 3D Land on the 3DS. And in this video, as obvious as it is, I should clarify it for those in the back, this is Super Mario 64 Land. So the story is simple and brief. This sole Toad on his lonesome was left responsible for watching over the Zetar, while all the others get to eat Peach's cake on her birthday. And as is expected from the menace to the Mushroom Kingdom, Bowser is once again stealing as usual for his whole big evilry shebang, just for him to taunt and act like Mario won't stop him for the 64th time. From there, you're given a tutorial to what is new in the game, having a Mario extended moveset that grabs from games that succeeded Super Mario 64, like ground pound diving from Mario Odyssey, wall sliding from the 64 DS game, the ground pound jump from the 3D lands and worlds, and the twirl from Galaxy makes its return. All of that along with that classic Super Mario 64 baseline. Then the rest of the game plays like a 3D world, but more along the linear side that 3D Land had for its level by level execution. And really going in full depth with each and every level isn't something that I want to do this time, as it doesn't feel too necessary since they all come from Kaze, a Super Mario 64 genius, so his work generally speaks for itself. You'll go through worlds that's expected of a Super Mario universe feel to them. One moment you're roaming through the lands of mountains with dance-bopping moves, frolicking through the lands of greenery that is the start to many early platformers, to being spacebound where the gravity is at 0 and you're having fun with what's been played thus far, that you kind of forget this is the first world, so why all of a sudden am I in space now? You kind of like end up missing that aspect, but for the most part it's Mario, so I think it ain't that bad. And since later levels are more wackier in the design and massive for its exploration and replayability they have, plus this is like the one time in the game where the level shifts to a completely different environment this drastically, so I don't think it's that big of a deal. Now, the thing I really love about this ROM hack is how, although the game manages to capture the classic NES games and even the Super Nintendo games, well, frankly, it touches all the games on all consoles, so I guess there was no point in me really saying that. But regardless, that 2D design still holds true here, the same way the 3D land and world was able to do that same type of feeling some justice in mind. Though I have still yet to have played past the second world of 3D World, the great addition that amplifies that classic Super Mario Bros. Is how some levels will have power-ups, and since the very first level showcases that with the Tanuki suit, which was a sight to see, and just as useful for that platforming assistance whenever it showed up. But not only old power-ups make a return, but new ones make their first appearance, like my most liked design, the electric cap that makes Mario look like he has that Super Mario Bros. Z super plumber hair or something. But not only that, but the power-up fitting the world it's in and levels, it being full of industrial landfill with towering sentient pillars with smoking pipes and pollution everywhere. It just feels like it complements each other in a way. Now back to the classics, as this game has done with a classical game. The respect here and paying of homage was a neat touch, whether it's a level of a story pop-up book with a helpful, sad-looking Chuck Yeet that does just that, the yeeting when you need a hand, to a whole stage from the play that was Super Mario Bros. 3. And with an adoring audience looking at the superstar at display and the matching enemies that made their first appearances in that same game, along with the platforming nostalgia for the biggest upgraded Mario game sequel on the NES gets its justice here, the sequel to the latter, and now in the world of World with Yoshi being present and usable that felt just like the level in which most people most likely abandoned Yoshi in, also where that fan art comes from. So the use of this level in particular really hit so much that it should feel like it should be a piece added into the history books of Super Mario. And for me, as far as gaming is concerned, apart from me having that I have too many games to play that I feel like I'd have no games to play kind of syndrome, I find myself usually going back to the games of the past. And while every so often I do end up playing a new currently made game, from time to time I will still find myself going back to the past, or at least playing like a few set of games and at worst play a new game a little bit, then somehow find myself getting bored, maybe losing interest. I don't know what it is, but it's that kind of uneasy feeling I get that I can't really explain what that said feeling actually is, but I know I hate it because it just makes me feel bad, and I doubt it's me not liking gaming anymore or whatever, but it kind of makes me feel fearful that it could be that if it ever came down to it. But for what this ROM hack was able to provide as a game within it, something that feeling that maybe if there was an alternative universe, that maybe this game is the type of game we could have had for the red mustachioed plumber's first 3D outing. Super Mario 64 Land was a treat to play, and although it being in the confines of Mario 64, you'll still have a few moments or two with that Super Mario 64 jankiness, and frankly aside from that, the only few issues I did have are more than outweighed by the multitude of positives this game shares. Just the start of the game screams that personality this hack is bound to contain on a first time playthrough. The select screen being 4 pipes and you can choose which one you want to go to, and if you're lucky enough and you're very indecisive enough, you may even come across and witness the L being real as he walks across the way, and also somehow mimicking Mario's limb expansion anytime he punch and kicks. And then selecting a file, Peach isn't a damsel in distress in this game this time around, but then again, it being her birthday, of course Mario would handle the situation as usual, like the true gentleman he is. The mini hub worlds that add in that extra fat to this ROM hack, and having hidden stars to be found, and even within those hub worlds, the toad houses that serve as a means of getting a star once you at least get an A rank in every level within this world. Everything has a great love and care Kaze Emanuar flair, with that 3D modeling with the new assets that adds into the Mario worldly adventure, more true to its roots, even if it is made by not Nintendo and by the fans themselves. The checkpoints for the massively sized levels that work as intended, and without an unnecessarily fade to black as it reloads and erases your current score, which even a score-based ranking system being implemented in a Mario game that makes that replayable challenge feel worthwhile for super players like myself. Hell, I can genuinely say that the 2-1 level is like the 1-2 level in Sonic Frontiers for me. It's the level that I just wanted to figure out how to get that perfect score to finally have that superstar ranking, which is basically the S rank if you want to go above an A rank. Things like this made games a good niche that made you want more, but without having that unhealthiness that is live servicey games that we get nowadays, you know? But then again, there are some levels that kind of suffer from that massive size and headache-inducing tedium of failing and having to start all the way from square one. I can at least admit that. The bathroom level, for one, just feels like a personification of some levels being a flooded headache that, just like an actual flooded bathroom, is a true nightmare to have to clean up. So for that fact, there is a matter of other gripes I had, so I'll knock those out of the way. And the first being about the infamous Sandbird, which was cool to see a return from Sunshine in here, but this one-way trip will have you suffering. And when I say one way, I mean just that. It came to a point where I was just stuck secluded, and thus I had to start all the way over because, how else am I supposed to get up if I can't fly up and I needed the bird? It was just sheer cruelty. And from time to time, the twirl mechanic, which was pretty good to have as a mechanic, but because of the fact it's assigned to the L button, but at the same time it's assigned to the analog stick for if you like twirl around because it's a twirl. And then I found myself on a lot of occasions accidentally ended up using it, but what can I say? This hack was made a few years ago, and frankly, trying to twirl around the controller, I'm pretty sure there's a lot of sensitivity issues when it came down to it, especially when it comes down to the platforming that's in 3D, in the 3D space, in a 3D world, across 3D lands. It's something I do wish there was something in-game that broke down the scoring system, just to trim out relying on the outside sources like going to YouTube. Maybe have the Toad houses have like a scoreboard and then you can read upon it and then it kind of like breaks down what you probably should be doing. I don't know. I feel like that would have helped a lot. I know there's a rocket power up in the later levels that's nice and fits the later levels galaxy-like feeling, but a better aiming method would have been just as nice. And really, those are kind of like all the gripes I had, and since they're all derived of me wanting to have that better ranking score, and those were the main issues I had during my times, I kind of really don't have that much of an issue with anything else, really. Like everything else besides those little nitpicks were all that there was. And frankly, of course, it's ultimately optional whether you want to actually go for that good score. And to me, it's just not really a big deal if you just watch a video on how you go about getting better scores, I guess. And still, after all of that, it still remains to have that bigger, grandiose, fun time to be had. Like the Toy Story level that screams the wholesome Nintendo 64 Christmas kids opening up their presents and containing that joy of Christmas as if Mario is just an action figure at the control of a master and then fighting said master's hand in a fight. But yeah, those nails, man, I can feel the pain. Like I don't even think Master Hand deserved that. But speaking of Master Hand, him along with the rest of the bosses are uniquely done for the most part, even if some are making a return, like the Angry Sun, which is complete bullshit and probably should have been on the list of my gripes. The little detail of the Goomba King hitting you and even the crowd watching is actually cheering as you get hurt, and poor Wario here makes it in but doesn't even stand a single chance and is really just fodder, and I beat him within like 30 seconds. And frankly, Bowser Jr. was ironically giving me the most trouble compared to like the games he's actually made appearances in. But man, the detail on his model is so crisp, especially his clown car, Bowser's body reused and all. But going more into the levels, there's a whole refrigerator that you're in that has objects that should not be inside of the fridge, like the Mario Bros spaghetti or ravioli canned goods that's supposed to be in dry storage, and somehow Jello is able to stay goopy even in this freezer burnt cooling device, and Mario's health is constantly draining while he's in this cold place is pretty dark, and knowing that he's just constantly freezing to death. But it was a pretty cool, unique level to see, and given the fact that Mario has been inside of tiny, huge type worlds or tiny, tiny lands and huge, huge worlds and stuff like that sorts, adding on to that classic Super Mario Bros. Flair, like Super Mario Bros. 3 callbacks. I really enjoyed this game, and while linearity is something I really don't typically go for, unlike in cases for this hack, it's interesting, fun, and I know it's going to be a good time. I can still pick up this game knowing I'm going to like it, even if I do have a few gripes. Collecting stars along the way while getting good scores, the levels all fit the tone each world is going for, and having some really high quality banging music tracks, and even a whole world with levels based off of like the whole musical rhythmic beat match to movement of the many assets found in the level, and even the reason as to why I found myself dying multiple times. And in general, there's not a single bad musical track in the entirety of this ROM hack. And the thing is, I don't know if this was before people were able to port literal music tracks with their quality intact inside of ROM hacks, but if it wasn't, then I wouldn't have been able to tell the differences at times, especially in the vaporwave synth world, and going to a synth city that's basically like a skyline New Donk City with that nighttime nightlife flair with neon lights, and that Donkey Kong Country musical track is just a chef's kiss to its overall scratching of a nostalgic classic feeling itch that somehow brings a futuristic flair yet old but still gold part to it. But I will say the Metro subway station level is pretty goofy when you realize the cornering kind of breaks the logic of that illusionary movement type of visionary aspect to it. And frankly, overall, I could gush endlessly about this game, but man, that'd be a lot. I mean, come on, looking back at some classic theme levels with the cel shaded and deep outlining looks the Mario World and Mario Story games were given is a treat to the eyes. And even having a whole Mario Kart level that has access to the poor caged up thwomp that's been in there for decades at this point, but it having a star is probably why it's been caged up for so long. Just an all-around cool callback to what's already a huge callback to the past and brought to a more modern way of gameplay mechanics, but with a game that came from that same era, which is something that feels like full healthy relationship when it comes down to the love and passion that Kaze was able to bring to the table with this ROM hack. All in all, Kaze really did some cooking when it came down to this game, as is expected given he's the main one still rewriting the code to this ancient game and is still continuing to do so just to get a literal frame up when it comes down to the frame rate. Please don't ever change, Kaze. But yeah, this has been Super Mario 64 Land, a game that holds true to its roots and was made by the fans that love this game and series. I definitely recommend anyone to try it out for yourself, but first and foremost for that casual playthrough in mind, because even the late game stuff will beat you down a peg if you want to go for that full completion. It's a joy to play through, and you should play it, because there's more than what I'm willing to say about it, but more importantly, it's up to you to try it for yourself. So yeah, I hope what has been showcased was somewhat enjoyable for whoever stuck by this. Next video is going to be on another Kaze hack, being Last Impact, which crazy enough is a game he himself does not recommend given its outdated ways it was made compared to hacks now, especially with its 100,000 lines of codes or whatever. So I'll go into making that video soon enough. So until then, check Kaze out, and if you want to find some more showcase videos like this, I got a whole playlist for it. Check it out for yourself if you want. But regardless, if you enjoyed this, cool. Like, comment, share, subscribe, all that good stuff, blah, 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 blah. But yeah, until next time, be easy, my friends. Peace out.